And we're live. Welcome everybody to this important call panel on the Super Tuesday results. Obviously, we're going to be focusing mostly on the Democratic race because that's more interesting to our progressive readership and audience. I should quickly introduce myself. I'm Austin. We've got two other important cool associates, Johnny and Allison, with us. We're actually going to start out with Allison telling us a bit about her experiences. Was it yesterday you were at the Trump rally, Allison?
It was Friday.
Friday. I'm sorry. It was
That's fine.
the end of last week. You actually attended a Trump rally in your hometown. Trump's dominating on the Republican Super Tuesday result in a powerful way. So why don't you give us a little bit of tell us what happened to you on Friday and what you think a Trump presidency would look like.
Well, to answer your second question, I think it would be. I just told like my mom and my friends like if Trump moves, then I mean, sorry, not Trump moves, but if Trump becomes president, then I feel like then I'm definitely am going to move to Canada or somewhere because this is a whole joke. His presidency is a joke. I mean, this cannot. Be realistic. I mean, it's almost like I don't know what. But to answer your first question about what happened on Friday was the day before on Thursday. Me and some of my Muslim friends planned. One of my friends planned it to actually go to. It was actually we were going to go to like a Marco Rubio rally at first, but someone posted his rally up for second, and my friends were like, let's just go to this one. And so I just like, okay, I'm in, and whatnot, because I wanted to show like him like who's boss here. Like we're basically boss. We're not gonna let. I think what he's doing is unpatriotic, and it's full of hatred. And we wanted to show him that day that we're not gonna that you don't speak for America at all. So that's what
So this was you and how many of your Muslim friends?
it was. About six of us.
Okay. And did you have banners or stuff like that?
I had a sign. We had some people. Some of them us came up with some banners. Others we had a few others had signs and whatnot. So yeah.
Okay. And you got in? I mean, tell us what happened. Talk us through the whole day. I think none of us would be brave enough to do it, so we'll live vicariously through you.
Okay. Well, the whole event was free. It was free. Like you had to register online first to be sure to get in for free, because there was no ticket. We didn't have to print out a ticket. You have to really when we first got in that cold morning. Oh, sorry, with my phone. When we first got in that morning, it was a long line, a very long line out to the street and by the Fort Worth Convention Center. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, and everything. And by the time we made our way in, there was security. They didn't ask us for our tickets. It just people started. They body searched us and whatnot. I had to put my sign. I wanted to make sure my sign was put up because it was a small sign, and in my coat, my leather jacket, and I went in there. And they didn't really they just checked the pockets and that was it. They didn't really care what I carried in there. And so they passed some of the Trump volunteers passed out little cards, and what I mean not cards but and
The big one.
yes, yeah. And it said on there the silent minority. On the thing it says Trump America's choice for the silent minority, which
No,
was
you sure it wasn't the silent majority? That's usually the line.
yeah, but someone yeah, that's what it said. Yeah, it's the majority, and I was like that was very weird. But to skip ahead, the crowd got much bigger as we stood. We decided to stand close to the media line and everything, and then. And we just stood there and waited. He didn't come on till around noon, around about 15 minutes after it's in noon, and because the doors opened at around 9 o'clock a.m. in the morning, and so we went there. We were staying there just waiting for him, and some people even talked to us. And one woman asked me, "Do you support Trump? Are you a Trump supporter?" And I lied. I just said, "Yeah, I support Trump," like just so I don't get myself kicked out, or any of my friends get kicked out. And
Well, we've seen that people are getting kicked out even before Trump's speeches start. He had a group of black students removed from one of his rallies before his speech even started and before they had a chance to express any protest. So it sounds like that was pretty strategic.
yeah, we were very we basically planned us, and one of my friends was basically a he used to work for he was in the military, so he knew how stuff worked. And so when we went in there, when we were there standing around, just we didn't. There was a lot of press there. There was the local press, and I think some of the international press were there. I didn't know who, but I know the Dallas Morning News, the Star Telegram, they were going around asking people for interviews and stuff, but we didn't want to give our names and whatnot. So, and we didn't tell them really what our real intentions were, and so I didn't really say anything. And when that point came, as he was speaking, I'm going to just speed up the process, the thing.
Sure.
Okay, so
Before you get to that, I'm just curious. Were the people you with that were Muslims? Were there any veiled women? Were you visibly, were they visibly Muslim? The people you were with?
The majority of them weren't visibly Muslim. Only just one person was visibly Muslim, and she was just a tiny woman. And one guy who kept just being so nosy, who wasn't part of the group at all. He was a hardcore Trump supporter, and he was like just a creepy dude. I overheard him telling her, "Be careful," and just kind of just being completely creepy, and and it was very stalkerish in a way.
Okay. And so what happened once the speech started? And how did you guys protest? What happened? Tell us the juicy bits.
So basically, what happened was we basically planned to started to shout when he first started saying stuff about immigrants and about Syrian refugees, and and that's what had happened. We basically said love don't hate that whole entire time, and I slowly pulled out my sign and I showed it to everybody, and we turned to the cameras and everything, and we started just yelling as loud as we can. We weren't the only ones that were in there shouting. We weren't the only protesters. There was another protester who was also in there, and she basically said, keep it going, do it, keep on. And then she basically protected us. She was pretty much of our guide, so kudos to her. There was this one guy behind me, like right next to me. This one, he looked kind of scary, a little bit scary to some of the people, some of my friends, and he was like booing and yelling, and we were just getting booed at and everything like that. And I just held the sign. I just yelled, "Love, don't hate," and we were being very peaceful about it. And at one point, I witnessed a friend of mine, one of my protester friends, as she was standing behind me. The guy who was doing the whole yelling and booing, he attempted to rip off her scarf that she was wearing. Not the hate. This is not the hijab woman, but this is another woman who was with us at the time, and he took this. At one point, he took the sign away, and she snatched it out of his hand and whatnot. So, and the guys there, they protect our men friends who were the protesters. They protected us, and and everything. So, it was really, at that point, it was more like we were the Inglorious Bastards against the Nazis.
Well, what happened? Did you guys get kicked out, or did you stay till the end, or?
No, we got kicked out.
So by Trump supporters, or by security, or by the Secret Service, or who actually
Security.
came and kicked you out, and how did they do it? Were they violent, or?
No, they surprisingly, and thank God, they weren't violent. There was some policemen who kicked us out. They escorted us out and everything. We basically walked out. As I was walking out, there was somebody. I felt somebody kicked something at me, on my leg and stuff, but it was like a weak ass kick, um, and whatnot. So.
Okay.
But I looked, I stopped, and I was like, who the fuck did that and stuff. But the police told me just keep going, and they sorted us out. There was a couple of independent journalists who asked me why I did this, and I told them that it was for. I just get tired of seeing my friends getting persecuted, and and it was just kind of and all that, and then there were protests outside, and including this Mexican couple who was yelling. They were kind of just yelling at these other people who were yelling back at them. It was kind of chaotic at the moment, but and then I yelled. I basically said, y'all to the opposers who agree with Trump, that you all are immigrants, whether you like it or not, or whether you know it or not. You're all immigrants. I yelled, "You're all immigrants," because they're, obviously they don't know what the hell they're doing, and they're refusing. I think they're
There were
just being
no.
ignorant.
So there were no pro-Trump Native Americans there, so they were all immigrants, right?
Yeah. Well, and then what's so strange was I saw a few black people in there who were for Trump, and there were some Mexicans in there who, including one Mexican guy who walked with us to get as we got into the line to find the line around the building. He was yelling "Support Trump" and everything, and basically he kept asking us like, "Do you support Trump?" And I say, "Yeah, we just support him so he can just go away and whatnot." So it was kind of just weird.
Okay. Just introducing Stefan, or AKA John's Domain, international documentary making superstar, has joined, as well as Andy has joined. We're just listening to Alison talk about her adventures last Friday. But I mean, obviously, there's not much that any of us are going to have to argue with about Trump. We're all pretty scared, or pretty.
I'm kind of curious
And pretty
if she had.
disgusted by it, I imagine.
Make America good again.
Thank you.
Allison, what was your experience with the pro-Trump Mexican voters and some of the other people of color? Like, what was your opinion? Like, what kind of interaction did you have outside of just like them asking you if you supported Trump? Like, were they very rude, or Sorry.
They were no. They weren't very rude. They were very more standoffish. And the next day, I can tell you the next day. Now, the next day there was one of my Muslim friends who didn't go to the Trump event. She invited me to a Ask a Muslim panel, and I even stood up at the panel, and I said that, oh, I went to the Trump rally event, and I stood up for the Muslims. And somehow, I know this is kind of unrelated, but I don't know, but one of the speakers basically said that he was saying that we don't condone, even despite the fact Trump was spoke there, they talked about Trump there and and everything. They said we don't do protesting. They said that protesting is forbidden in the Quran, and it was more. I think there was more a bit of standoffish there too as well. So, but other than that, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just curious because the Rubio, the Rubio Cuban that block of voters is they can be very reactionary at times.
Yeah, and just the other day, I heard that a Time magazine photographer was kicked out. Was brutally forced out of one of Trump's rallies for some odd reason. I don't know why, but yeah.
That actually, that guy, the interesting thing about that was he was actually attacked by the Secret Service, not by Trump's
Really?
security.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was a Time magazine photographer. I don't remember his name, but he wrote a piece in Time magazine, or he had like a response to it.
Oh.
And he said he escalated it, like he cursed at the secret security guy, he said, but as soon as he did that, the Secret Service guy, just took him down by the throat.
Jesus, wow. Wow.
And that's happening to Time magazine as well. That's not like some ratbag lefty protester. That's like a major respected
Exactly.
outlet.
Yeah,
That's
and I
meant
think
to be.
I also
And you know,
I
and
also
then,
think it's especially significant that the federal government is carrying out violence on behalf of Trump. You know, it's not just like random Trump people doing it.
yeah.
It's actually the full weight of the state is just like attacking this photographer. He was like, you know, the guy's like,
Dude, you should have seen today. Trump was in town here, and some of his fans kicked out this young lady. Man, they was started pushing her and hitting her. I was like, whoa. She wasn't even doing nothing. They was just escorting her out. And then like the peanut gallery started hitting her and yelling stuff at her. It's like, God.
And so, and another thing, and you know what? Another thing, while I was there at the Trump rally, he even said, as we was saying, is that a protester? Like he was talking about the New York Times, that how it's a bad newspaper, and he's gonna try to censor the media. I think there was a mention of him wanting to censor the media or something like that. So, I mean, if you can imagine people getting kicked out, not just people of color, anti-Trump protesters or whatever, and even photographers, just imagine what it's going to be like under his America, which that can't happen. That just can't not happen.
Well, I mean, this is the thing is people have been saying it's impossible for a while. That like a lot of people just didn't think a candidate as nutty could win, but it looks like he's what the Republican base really craves, you know. And it's I'm reminded of like Chomsky always, like for ages, even before the sort of rise of Trump and the sort of rightward lunacy of the Republican Party. He's always saying, you remember, Germany wasn't like some, intellectually undeveloped place. It wasn't. It was a place that had, the leading Western philosophers, the best universities, science and culture, and Germany was the center of all of that before someone like Hitler came to power. I'm not saying there's no differences between Hitler and Trump, but this use of this readiness to use political violence to suppress opponents is he seems very comfortable with it, and that's scary when we're seeing it at this microcosm level at his events. It is terrifying to imagine what it would be like when he was president. John, you were saying Trump's in your home city of Louisville.
He was in Louisville today,
what's that like?
Hey, bro. Wait a minute. Hey, the Dems are in trouble, bro. Like, the Democrats are in trouble, bro. I used to think Trump was a joke. Hey, man, the Dems are in trouble, bro, because the Bernie people aren't gonna vote for Hillary. And like, I think Trump might win, bro. I used to think it was a joke.
I kind of think Trump is Hillary's only chance. That if Hillary runs against Trump, if he's just the Republican nominee, then she might beat him. Because so many people, all of us, I'm not gonna vote for freaking Hillary,
Me neither.
But if he's running against Trump, I'm definitely gonna think about it.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Trump. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the Bernie people aren't gonna vote.
If he doesn't make it as the Republican nominee and he runs as an independent, then the Republicans are done. Hillary wins by default. There's no question.
I'm saying that the pro-Bernie people and the rest of the Dems, they're not going to vote if Hillary wins. I'm saying it's going to be a low voter turnout.
I think they will if Trump's really the Republican nominee. They will vote.
I'm not.
I think they would.
I'm not going to vote for
it. Even to stop Trump.
But I'm saying that everybody I've talked to was like, hey, man, I'll vote for Jill Stein before I vote for Hillary.
Same.
Yeah, but they don't. But I think a lot of people that say that don't really think it's really going to be Trump.
Nah,
I think people change their minds if they really like 6 more months of Trump campaigning and he's really the Republican guy.
I don't know.
Look, bro, I didn't realize his impact until I seen the lines around the building at the fucking convention center on both sides. I didn't realize that this guy's getting his people out to vote. They're gonna vote, bro. The Hillary people hate Hillary. Like the Bernie people
Trump is the only person in America, the only major candidate with higher negative favorability, with like higher unfavorability ratings than Clinton. You might get people coming out to vote against Trump and for Clinton in that regard. And like what I would say is, if people are in a swing state, then yeah, you should. If I was in the States, it would depend which state I was in. If I was in a swing state, then I would vote against the Republican, because you don't want to be responsible for World War III, right? But if you're not in a swing state, a state that's safe one way or another, then you should totally vote for Jill Stein or one of these third-party candidates in that scenario. To broaden the discussion and stuff. I mean, there's almost an argument to do that even if someone like Sanders wins. Although there's a difference, because with Sanders, you might want to give him such a resounding win that it gives him more political capital to actually push through, more dramatic changes, which kind of sums it all up. Like voting, even amongst the people who are voting for Clinton now in the Democratic primaries, like the number one reason that one of the top reasons, anyhow, that they're saying that they're voting for Clinton is that they think she'll do better in a federal election. They're worried that Bernie's a risky candidate. Like a lot of the polling says Bernie's not a risky candidate because he actually gets all the independents and all the people who hate Hillary Clinton and would vote against her because she's establishment, that he actually peels off some of those votes from the Republicans. But there's another dynamic. They might be right, because the Democratic Party would turn on its own candidate if that candidate was Sanders. You have this schism happening inside the Democratic Party going right up to general election. I think there are definitely people in the Democratic Party who would prefer to have someone like Trump win than someone like Bernie Sanders win. They're like the people in the Democratic hierarchy who would prefer that a candidate like Sanders loses, and therefore they can say, look, it's impossible, it's crazy, stick to our sort of, weak as piss neoliberal position, because if you try and vote for what you really want, you'll lose.
He's not going to do any of that stuff, though. I mean, at the end of the day, they're all going to do the same shit. Like, Trump isn't going to really build the full wall along the entire border. He's going to do the same thing every other president does, which is a partial wall and guys with guns out there to shoot at you in the darkness,
Yeah. Well, but I mean, like,
instead of a wall.
On his earlier, he's like blue dogs.
And Bernie wouldn't break up the damn banks. He's going to break up the banks like Obama closed Guantanamo. They're all really going to do more or less the same thing in the end.
Yeah.
Look,
It doesn't matter that much. It's really just a cultural impact, and I think why Trump is so dangerous is because he stirs up his followers. Like angry white people become more violent when they watch Trump on TV. So that's a reason not to have Trump. But in terms of the actual policies,
angry black and Mexican people who don't know what the hell they're doing, who actually agree with Trump. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I wanted to say, Allison, that is an awesome thing that you did. That must have been really, really scary. Actually, and that just like major props to you for that. That was really cool.
Yeah. Walked into the hornet's nest.
Everyone take note.
For sure.
Yeah.
I was gonna go.
Go on.
I said I was gonna go today, but my ankle is sore. I was gonna. No, seriously, I had to be full strength because I would have had to knock a couple of people out.
I'm surprised she didn't knock anyone out.
They could have just pushed me over, and I've been done for with my ankle messed up.
Well, that's scary, isn't it? When you're thinking about participating in politics and you've got to worry, what's my, how well am I going to be able to defend myself? How well am I going to be able to, handle the scuffle that happens? Look, I want to go back to like one of the main things that like Andy and I have been fighting on social media, and I'm sure there's like a million people across the country been having basically, or across the world have been having basically the same debates, right? Like, would Bernie Sanders be any different? And like, I think yeah, he would, because and what you were saying before about Trump exciting, angry right-wing white people across the country, a Sanders victory would equally empower left-wing activists and people who were in Occupy Wall Street, and then you see the same rhetoric going forth and actually shaping the national discourse, right? Like, I've for a long time said that nothing's going to come from within the electoral system. But I also would have said that you couldn't raise $40 million in 1 month from small donors, which is like last month in February, he raised $5.7 million yesterday, right? Without going to the banks, without going to the big corporate America. So in doing that, he's undercutting one of the main ways that these people have controlled the American discourse, and that's something that's got to excite people. I think even if he doesn't win, he's showing that it's a lot more possible than a lot of us have thought until now. Johnny says he has an update. Johnny, hit us up. What do you got?
Sanders is at 50% in Oklahoma right now.
Okay. See, that's one of the states that's swinging, right?
Yeah. So far, yes.
Come on, Bernie.
Clinton's about to speak in Florida right now. But I mean, like the southern states are very important for that, because you got to go through the blue dog, block, which are the Debbie Wasserman Schultz of the world in the Democratic Party. The Bill Clinton block.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the results that we're seeing coming in are not looking good for Sanders, right? It's like it's not what I have been hoping for, not what I've been predicting. I bet when we look at the breakdown of the votes afterwards, we'll see that same has happened in Nevada, especially young people just didn't show up, right? And see, like, that's what I think, like, Andy, your point is something that a lot of the time is sort of like, I know you've been saying that Sanders probably won't win, and that what he's doing is, this sheepdogging thing where a left-wing candidate runs to get left-wing progressives excited, and they take part in the democratic process, and then in the end they end up voting for the least worst candidate, voting for Clinton. I mean,
there's even a term for this? Like, this is already a thing? It's sheepdogging?
Oh, yeah, totally. There's a term for it, and it's called sheepdogging because you round up the stray cattle that are going off to the left and you bring them back to the main flock, right? First of all, I don't know how real that is, because you've got you've got these people who are saying Bernie or bust. If we don't get Clinton, we're going to go for something else. But second of all, I mean, like, I think it's irresponsible not to go for the lesser of two evils. I think you have to think about that in these kind of contexts. Because I don't know if people can see what we're typing here in the chat, because Stefan is saying that it's over for the Burn. And, like, everyone's saying, yeah, say it out loud, guys. I don't know. Can the audience even see that stuff? Just talk over me. I can take it.
No, I don't. I can't see it. Let me look on the YouTube. I was watching it a minute ago.
I don't think that stuff shows up on YouTube.
Get a feedback loop. It'll be crazy. I've done that before.
Hey, man. It's over for the Burn, bro.
It's early days. We haven't got good numbers in yet. But in the states that he's losing by too much, right?
He's got bumps.
Yeah.
I think he's breaking about even like 2 states, it looks like, and then the rest of them he just got stomped. He won Vermont for it.
We have nothing from Minnesota. We have nothing from Colorado. Oklahoma, Massachusetts, could still go his way. Minnesota, we've got nothing from yet. Oklahoma's now NYT has him leading in that 50-42, so that's good.
Even when they come back, they're not going to outweigh the other ones, man. He lost too bad in Georgia. He lost all the big ones.
Look, here's the thing, right? I also think we have, while my enthusiasm is definitely dampened, I've gone. My big hope was before even Iowa, but I was most optimistic just before Iowa when it looked like he was going to trend up and take that state. And I kind of feel like that 0.2% that he lost Iowa by really matters because it kind of broke that surge to a little extent. You know what I mean? Broke the momentum, and I've just been since then. I've just been shocked at how little young people have turned out. I thought, these are the people who are getting screwed over by Clintonomics worse than anybody. Bill Clinton set up this economy into which they're now graduating and finding there are no jobs. They were they're now entering. I expected this cohort to show up. But we're just not getting the enthusiasm from young people that would be needed to happen. That said, I don't think you can expect this campaign to play out the normal way because, for example, normally once you start losing, you stop raising money. The opposite has happened for Sanders. He started losing, and he's had his biggest fundraising month yet, twice as big as the one before, nearly, right? And so there's a dynamic where it is a little bit unpredictable. Even, Clinton's still going to be, at the end of today, she's still going to be 1,000 delegates short of a win. Sanders is going to be 1,500 short of a win, something like that, maybe, in a worst-case scenario. Worst-case scenario, right? And that's still a long time to fight, and even if Sanders doesn't look like he's going to win, I think he should keep going so that everybody in every state gets the chance to vote against Hillary Clinton, just to scare the Democratic establishment.
Exactly. Don't quit.
I absolutely agree.
Burn. I don't want the burn to quit, bro.
Yeah.
But hey,
but no, there's momentum though because you
go to burn. It's over for the burn, bro.
Yeah. But I mean, like,
burn.
There's still a base to work with on the grassroots level, like with the states. Like you got Sawant in Seattle with and she's behind the Fight for 15 campaign that's really mobilizing young people. I think that's where the future is, not necessarily at a presidential level. I just don't think we're necessarily ready for, like, because, we're not in a parliamentary system like Europe, everywhere else where, you got these senators with high term limits and, I'm running on tangents, but...
No, you're right. I absolutely, and like one of the positives and one of the reasons I'm kind of optimistic is that there's been a new network of like young progressives created, right? Well, it's interesting because we saw one of the reasons I was so receptive to the idea that Sanders could win was Corbyn. We've just seen him beat 100 to 1 odds against that. The odds were 100 to 1 against him for the Labour leadership in the UK, and then he came through and he smashed it and he won with the biggest victory of any Labour leader. And like Corbyn is like to the left of Sanders. He's like even better than Sanders in foreign policy. I agree with him basically, whereas with Sanders I think his foreign policy is atrocious, blah blah blah. And so that made me think that, like, okay, you're going to get these young socialists, essentially, right-wing socialists, democratic socialists, moderate socialists are going to take over the Democratic Party the way they've just taken over the Labour Party, because they've like got the Labour Party in the UK locked down, and that's quite an optimistic situation because they've got 5 years for demographics to keep moving in their favour before the next election. They've got 5 years till there's another general election in the UK, and in that time, old racist conservatives are going to die, and young people are going to turn 18, and the demographics shift towards a progressive point. And we're seeing that in the States. It looks like it's not as far along as it is in the UK. And the sad part is that those at the national level, those more hardcore liberals or softcore socialists are not going to have another chance to do anything at the national level for like 8 years in the United States if Clinton wins both the nomination and the presidency. And maybe if Trump wins, they'll never get a chance because there'll be World War III and it'll be a nuclear wasteland. Like, I have to say, I'm a little bit heartbroken today, but I'm still encouraged by even this amount of success for a candidate who doesn't take money from corporate America.
I wanted to ask Allison, you were at the Netroots Nation protest, right?
I don't think I was. No.
Oh, I thought you weren't you one of some protests. I thought you were posting stuff on Facebook a few months back where you were at a protest with Bernie Sanders.
Oh
Was
yeah,
there?
yeah, I was. Yeah.
Yeah, so
It
I
wasn't.
kind of
It
I
wasn't.
wanted to ask
It
you.
wasn't the Roots Nation though. It was just he came to Dallas.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I got it. I think it was around the same time that he was sort of interrupted at
Yeah.
the bigger conference. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Sorry,
you're
were you attending
you
as
you
a
probably one of
supporter
the
or a
people.
protester, Allison?
I'm sorry.
Were you attending the Sanders thing as a supporter or a protester or a bit of both?
A bit of both because I didn't quite agree with the whole. I like the thing is I'm kind like I his stance on Palestine. And then after seeing the video about him escorting, basically shutting up a protester regarding Palestine, and just like, well, wait a minute. And then another truth about him that he voted for extradition of the activist Asada Sakir to be extradited from Cuba. That was kind of like a big concern for me. So I just like, but apparently I didn't yell that loud, and so I just basically, it was pretty much good. So yeah.
I think you're one of the few people in the world who's protested against both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, probably.
She
Yeah.
might be the only one. She
Yeah.
might be the only one. And of course, she's an important cool associate because we may not be that famous, but we are the most hardcore, as demonstrated by Allison's.
Yeah.
No, but, okay, Allison, Stefan, why do black people love Hillary Clinton? Please explain it to the rest of us because it doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
It doesn't make sense to me either.
Oh shit, Stefan, we're not getting audio. We're not hearing you. We're not hearing you, Stefan.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Now I can. Now we can. Now we can.
Oh,
Now
I was
we
going to say, to me, it miffs me too. I don't have a fucking clue. I can't believe it. But I think people are going off the myth of the first black president being Bill Clinton. That's my only explanation. I don't know. Because if they look at his policies, he's did way more stuff to hurt black people than George Bush. You know, from the
Wow, that's pretty serious condemnation.
three strikes law. He ended the welfare. Let's
Yeah.
see the putting more
NAFTA.
NAFTA and putting more nonviolent people in prison for like petty drug crimes like weed. Yo man,
Yeah, and it was
this guy's the biggest con artist ever.
And Clinton was still taking money from these private prison companies like a few months ago. Right? It's not like she's been cashing in on that those mass incarceration policies right up to this election. And
They profiteered off the Haiti earthquake too. They helped Korean companies set up sweatshops in Haiti.
Wow.
For economic recovery after the
What do you mean
the earthquake?
he single-handedly ruined Haiti's rice crop, man. Now
That's
the
true, he
Haitians, their export. Now the Haitians import rice from Arkansas.
of course,
Yeah, I forgot about it.
so they flooded the
Staged a
rice
coup
market.
there, right? Or he assisted or supported a coup in Haiti when he was president too. I was talking about their more recent Clinton Foundation work.
Oh man, we're losing Stefan's audio, which is very annoying. No.
Oh, I can't hear you, bro. Sorry.
Yeah, we're not. For some reason.
I'm not getting it.
But yeah, about the coup. Yeah, Stefan, the coup.
I didn't even know about that.
No, it was. This is when Aristide or whoever was kicked out and put on a plane and taken to Africa during the first Clinton administration. Actually, this is one of this is when Democracy Now! Really one of the... No, we can't hear you, Stefan. We're getting no audio from you for some reason. We'll come back in a minute and try, but this is during I think the coup, one of the coups in Haiti was during the Clinton regime, Clinton presidency, if I'm remembering right.
I believe it was, and then they sent in UN troops to cover for it. They needed, there was a power vacuum. They removed the president, and then the UN voted to send troops in, and he refused to send Americans. He said, well, this was the UN's decision to send troops in, when of course he had a huge hand in creating the situation in the first place.
Where the UN had to come in.
We don't need to fight the UN's wars.
I remember Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! Was like on the plane or something with Aristide at the time. Like, it was one of these amazing feats of reporting where Amy Goodman and the Democracy Now! Team managed to like break the media silence on the whole thing, and sort of get the real story out at the time and do amazing work as well. It's something I remember about it. So probably Democracy Now! Has the best information on that for anyone who wants to check it out. But yeah, appalling relationship with Haiti from most Clintons. Like, but see, that kind of like one argument I've heard about why black people support the Clintons is that during the 8 years of his office, actually, black unemployment fell, the median black income rose or something. But then the problem with that is that he was at the same time with NAFTA and these mass incarceration policies, he was laying the groundwork for like decades of suffering to come afterwards, which would decimate the manufacturing base, cost black people jobs and lock them up. So and let's be clear as well. I think I'd like to see more numbers on this. But my understanding is young black people and young Latinos don't support the Clintons. It's the older generation. Same as with whites, but just not as same as with the white bloc. The young people support Sanders more, and older people support Clinton more. And it's interesting how you see the media really emphasizes that the lack of black support, but they don't emphasize the high youth support with Sanders. It's really because that's a less negative narrative that he's hit with the young people.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
We're hearing some feedback, but yeah.
we're hearing you a bit now. Stefan, try again.
How about that? Can you hear me? No?
Yeah, kinda. It keeps dropping out. This is really annoying. Stefan, do you want to drop out of the call and come back and see if we can hear you better then?
What settings you got your mic on? Hold on.
Not hearing you, man.
Yeah.
So I tried hanging up and logging and reconnecting, and it should work. Who knows? We might get lucky.
But yeah, touching on your earlier point, Austin, about the some of the Mexicans and that are part of the Republican Party, like say like that back Trump, and there's some of this nihilism that's on some of the left, but also too with like the Rubios of the world. It's a scary precedent because they don't realize that they're against their own interests. Like, as someone from a Puerto Rican background, it's scary to see someone like a Cuban or a Mexican, especially living in a state like Florida, where we have to worry when we see a Confederate flag that they might attack us, like what happened in Anaheim. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they back the people that sort of push that narrative to the right. Just the racism, there's it's scary, man. Like,
it's very scary. I mean, you say that these Latinos or even this tiny number of black people who might vote for Trump are voting against their interests. So are the white people. The white people who are voting for Trump are also voting against their own interests.
Well,
the people voting for Clinton will end up voting against their own interests in a major way. The exciting thing about this electoral cycle was Sanders, and it really does look like the wind is coming out of his sails tonight. I'm still hoping for a miracle going forward. I'm hoping for just a massive string of victories for Sanders, and later in March it does come into states where he's polling better. So if he can survive till then, who knows? But if it's close, then the super delegates are going to swing it to Clinton. And now my big fear is that if Sanders almost wins and then Clinton gets it, the Democratic Party establishment is going to go through some kind of purge, do something to try and prevent an insurgent candidate like this from winning again. And that could lead to a split in the Democratic Party, which might be good in the long term because it creates a third party on the left. But it's also going to just sort of hand power to the Democrats, to the Republicans for a while that chaos is unfolding. And, man, they can basically destroy the world given a good 8 years, you know what I mean, from where we're standing now with climate change and World War III both becoming like problems that need to be dealt with immediately.
Man.
Guys, update.
Democrats will also destroy the world.
Yeah, they both want to destroy the world,
There's a big difference. Between Sanders and Clinton.
One's like a knife in the back,
I think there's a difference in their rhetoric, but they wouldn't really implement different policies if they got elected. I really think that Obama proved this very clearly. Like, I don't see how anyone can really think that electing a different president will change things. When, like, you got a graph of, like, horrible shit that Americans do,
the bank.
So straight.
The banks.
You can't pick on that graph where we switched from Bush to Obama. Like, we exited Iraq under the terms of a deal that Bush signed. It was Bush that got our troops out of Iraq, not Obama.
Yeah.
Obama.
The other argument is
that new deal to send them back, and now finally
on the Iraq issue, there's an argument that neither president actually had anything to do with the troops leaving. That it was WikiLeaks and the Iraqi people had U.S. troops. That meant that they couldn't get an agreement to keep.
They couldn't re-sign the status of forces agreement. Yeah,
exactly. So that was undermined by WikiLeaks.
Yeah, that's fine. But I mean, like, it's the point is still that they didn't like. Whoever the president is has no effect on our policy in Iraq. This shit is decided outside of there by other people that we don't get to elect. First of all, the Pentagon officials don't change depending on the president. We kept the same Secretary of Defense.
Well, they might.
We changed the Secretary of Defense now, but Bush would have anyway. They changed.
Look at some of
the vast majority of the military officials who have a much bigger role in policy than most people realize are unelected and don't change depending on Democrat or Republican.
The
president
can appoint people.
But I will say, sorry. Oh, I was just saying, you guys, like, we need to start worrying about grassroots, like the whole. There's nothing wrong with voting for a president, but like it's like chopping a tree. You don't hit a branch. You got to hit the root, and like I think the root in America, it's like we got to the Democratic Party. We've just got to hit it at the root because at the same time, both of them have the same roots in racism, this segregation. They switched parties, like in the '60s and the '70s. The Dixiecrats,
Yeah, well, now nowadays
how do you attack the Democratic Party? How do you attack the Democratic Party from a third party, or this is the debate whether you challenge the Democratic establishment from a third party position, like Jill Stein and Chris Hedges and so forth argue, or whether you try and take over the Democratic Party from the left. And I mean, the Democratic Party was the pro-slavery party. Then they ran a black guy as their candidate for president and won. So these parties can change. Has happened in America before. Sometimes
I'm not denying that either.
So at what stage
I don't think the thing is, change didn't really happen in America. We just exported our human rights abuses, you know? Like the same exact thing, our policy towards the Native Americans for the first 150 or 200 years of this country is now our policy towards Middle Easterners and Muslims living outside of our borders. We didn't really stop that. We didn't make any progress. We didn't change. And I would say it goes farther than, it's not just like we got to uproot the Democratic Party. It's America itself. America has to go. America was born in blood. It has lived in blood for its entire existence. And now we're seeing its death throes in blood. It's a dying empire that's losing its economic grip and thrashing out with just incredible violence at anyone and everyone because it knows it's going down. And
at the same time, we can't.
Would be to make that happen, to work towards there being no America. That's
we also
what I would.
We also have to worry. Sorry. We also have to worry though, like what happens if we win, you know? Because like we get rid of one empire, do we want like you know just the sorry. But I'm on a tangent. But like, do we want like say A and B? The second team is bad, but we have to worry about running against the B team. We have to worry about like a grassroots, but also an international, like a true internationalism. That like you know, sorry to get back to Karl Marx, but like you know, like an international workers movement.
Yeah, you know, like you convince me. It's all states and all corporations. It's not just America.
America is the primary evil, but like once we defeat that primary evil, we got to worry about that B team that wants to come up. It's like in the NBA playoffs. Say like the Warriors or something get knocked off. Like you know what I'm saying. Like
if Putin's Russia had the power that the United States does and the global dominance that the United States does, I don't think things would be better. I don't think things would be any better. We don't, but like. We go on real big picture here, I know, which I think is great. But like, I want to use the example of Ecuador for a minute, just for a second, right? like, because here's a country where you had grassroots movements, you had massive indigenous, peasant, and urban poor uprisings for again and again for years, and they kicked out many before Correa, the current president. They kicked out something like 6 presidents before they finished their term. Because every president would come out of the same system, the same establishment, and make this whatever promises they made, they got into power, and they do the same thing. And the people could get rid of them, and they kept getting rid of them for quite a long time, right? But they didn't get any of the things they wanted. They didn't get the schools and the roads and the hospitals until they found a leader and a party that could take power and could, and that's not to say that what we've got in Ecuador is like some utopian anti-corporate, anti-state project. It's actually a lot like sort of New Deal Democrat policies from the 20th century in the United States, but less racist. But but that's a situation where, like, sure, tear it all down, but if you don't have something to fill the void, if you don't start presenting alternatives, then you're going to end up in a situation where you tear it all down and someone like Trump or some other nut job comes in and fills the power void you've left. That applies both internationally and locally. And I mean, what's happening more so with Corbyn, but to a lesser extent with Sanders, is you're seeing the articulation of what could be, actual policies to come in and run these countries which have been imperial. I mean, the British government is definitely. The British state is dripping in blood just as much as American empire is, a little bit older and a little bit drier, right? But you do have to figure out what you're going to do with the massive state structures and how you're going to actually build something else once you start tearing down what already exists. I actually think that capitalism, the U.S. sort of unmitigated capitalist system or U.S. imperialism will collapse under its own weight. It'll overextend and it'll, create its own downfall. Again, a very classically Marxist point of view. The question is, are we going to be ready to present an alternative, or is it just going to be World War III and, you know, the rise of some other hegemon? And globally and locally, is it going to be, you know, is it going to just be turmoil and chaos when that moment comes, or is there going to be some kind of alternative? And look, on that note, one of the best things about someone like Sanders winning might be that there is a coup attempt against them, in which case the most, like, nut-jobby right-wing, the most hardcore deep state elements will expose themselves and could possibly lose. Like, that's happened in Ecuador. There have been coup attempts that have failed, and in their failure they have, like, increased the grip of the democratic system, of the popular parties on power, and they've given the leaders here an opportunity to say, you know, kick out the U.S. military advisors, close the DEA's drug bases, get rid of some of the oligarchs from positions of power and influence, right? So, I mean, I kind of welcome the conflict that someone like, you know, people keep saying nothing would happen if Sanders won, right? Like, he wouldn't be able to change anything because there'd all be all these forces arrayed against him. Well, at least there'd be more of a conflict, and they'd have to fight for it, rather than just having it handed to them on a silver platter like Clinton would.
But the thing is, though, like the Bernie guys aren't. The only thing that bugs me about the Bernie Sanders fans is they think of the presidential election as a cheat code, which I live in a swing state of Florida. I would vote for Bernie Sanders, but at the same time, if you're not organizing with the labor, you're not organizing with the marginalized communities of this country, especially in the South, the West, you know, the migrant workers. If you're not hitting that base too outside of the college campuses, it's like, you know, it's like, what are you guys doing? Like, a lot of these Bernie Sanders people on social media and, like, the real, you know, the movers and shakers came from Occupy, and some of them did not come from that working class, you know, in our communities that aren't from, you know, the fluent, you know, urban, you know what I'm saying? That we're not from the fluent part of society, you know? Like, they still need to hit that base too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe you're right about some of the supporters looking at Sanders' candidacy as a kind of a cure-all and like, well, that'll fix everything. But I don't think Sanders can be accused of that. He said repeatedly that, you know, electing him is part of a political revolution. I know we're all going to have possibly objections to that term, but that he says he wants a mass movement and he knows that he'll need that to keep fighting if he does make it to the presidency. And the other thing that does is it makes him dependent on the activist left, and that makes him vulnerable on issues like Palestine. That makes him vulnerable on issues like expanding wars in the Middle East, because that can hurt him in a way it can't hurt people who don't depend on you know, the activist left for support.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I'm just saying, like, that Seattle model works, dude. Like, that Seattle model that got behind Sawant, whether we agree with her or not, there was success. That was an outside party. They are still, you know, they're doing a popular front with the Democrats too. But they got her, and then they got with the you know, the fight for 15, the drive for the $15 an hour, you know. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, like, I'll let Andy go because I interrupted him.
No, go for it, man.
No, I want to hear about this. What happened in Seattle?
Yeah.
What happened in Seattle? I have no idea.
Sawant is with the Socialist Alternative, and that's outside of the Democratic Party, but they were able to get some results, whether they were big or not. You know, they still won in Seattle. They got successfully a $15 minimum wage. You know, like, that model. I think whether we agree with it or not wholly, that can be, you know, on every major city. That's possible, you know, and I think that's what Bernie Sanders, the main organizers that got behind that, they were too worried about Bernie Sanders and not necessarily, you know, that's a freaking, you know, Seattle. I'm just saying, like, if you can get, like, a socialist on a city council or whatnot, whether you agree with it or not, like, they got legislation passed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta work small and work your way up. Like, party. I hate to sound like a tanky, but, you know, you gotta party build sometimes.
yeah, the Gramscian position, a war of Gramscian line, a war of position. You know, that we take whatever we can, and but the you know, sometimes I think that one reason is that one reason people are sort of really hesitant to do that is they want something more dramatic and glamorous and sort of this apocalyptic conflict in which you know, good will triumph over evil, and that kind of like cataclysmic change is just as likely to you know, is so unpredictable and so dangerous. It can and if America went sort of hard right, then it would be so terrible for the whole world. I don't think you can ignore what's happening inside the Beltway, so to speak. I think you have to fight both inside and outside the formal system. And what we're seeing is that fighting inside the formal system, you can achieve a lot more than we thought you could a year or two ago. You know, that's something I don't think anybody I don't think anybody would have said that a Sanders campaign or a Corbyn campaign or anything like that could be as successful as they were, as they have already been. And I think that's an important lesson to learn, that there's a hunger out there for, you know, radical quote-unquote ideas.
Well, I think that's the big problem with these guys, is that that's why they exist, is to provide an outlet for those radical ideas without actually running the risk of implementing them. And Corbyn, of course, still has no real power. It remains yet to be seen what he would do if he did take any power. And I think what he would do if he would take power is what Tsipras did. Back when Tsipras did it, I said the same thing. That guy's a fucking sellout. And everybody, you know, no, he's the real thing. He's the left. It's the left coalition. It works to work within the system. And he turns around how many weeks later and he takes the EU, you know.
Yeah,
like anybody else.
Directly against the wishes expressed by the people in a referendum. It was shameful.
Yeah.
But there you have the EU. You have the EU like holding, like over above them, the EU body and the Troika holding this big stick over them. There isn't an obvious. The obvious who that would be for Corbyn would be the US. The US government would be the people who come after Corbyn if he's victorious and smash him with a big stick. Whereas Sanders, if you want it would be an internal fight inside the US rather than some external, like the IMF used to control. And like even then, like it can happen. It happened here. Ecuador came through under Correa and came in and immediately told the IMF and the World Bank, who played a similar role here as the EU does in Greece, and just said, no, we're not paying the debts. Go fuck yourself, right? Wrote off the debts. And everyone said it's going to be a disaster, it's going to be chaos, and it wasn't. They've done much, much better than, say, neighboring Peru, which stayed in the neoliberal orbit, has the TPP, and is, you know, and has basically, you know, incredible inequality and dysfunction, which shows no signs of letting up. Here in Ecuador, you have an example of it did work, right? And if it can work in a banana republic, which has a GDP, you know, the size of an American city, then why can't it work in the US, or why can't it work in the UK? I don't think we can just write it off as impossible. I think we have a responsibility to pursue it. I think we can hear you now. No. What do we think about wrapping up? Anyhow, we've been going about an hour, which is about a good length to start thinking about wrapping it up. Anyone have those are my closing thoughts, what I just said. So. Closing thoughts.
Johnny, Allison.
Yeah, I think we're screwed no matter what happens this election. You know, unless we're serious about building like an alternative that can actually, you know, snipe at the Democrats and, you know, get the labor. You know, we're fucked. I'm sorry.
Feel the burn.
Stefan?
Stefan, we can hear you again.
Feel the burn, man.
Feel the burn. That's your closing comment. I'm with me too. I changed my. That was my closing thoughts. Feel the burn.
The burn, he burnt out, bro.
Burnout. Yeah. That's a headline that someone's writing right now. Somewhere in America, the headline "Burnt Out" is being written.
So for the
So
burn.
I'm gonna say one more thing. Compare the UK and Australia, right? In Australia, the real left, the actual socialist left, the people who go to protests, the people who actually hate capitalism, blah blah blah. They have left the Labour Party. They quit it and started the Socialist Alliance and various other third-party options. And now they in this moment of sort of global disquiet, they remain completely marginalized. Just nothing is happening, right? In Australia, whereas in the UK, I was talking to someone actually here in Ecuador who was on the Labour left in the UK, working with people like Sanders before they came to Ecuador, and he's like, that revolutionary sort of doctrinaire left stayed in the Labour Party in the UK in the way that they didn't in other places. And that has allowed someone like Corbyn to immediately get this position of national prominence. So maybe working outside, being inside that system, and I mean, he's then brought in this new generation of young voters who have taken over the Labour Party. And you're seeing all these Labour MPs, these bigwigs in the party, who keep trying to tear Corbyn down. All that they end up doing is hurting their own standing and showing themselves to be, sort of closer to the Tories than to the actual Labour Party base. And so there you've got a situation where there's a crack in the wall. You know what I mean? Something could be happening. Whereas in Australia, because we stayed outside the system, the harder left stayed outside the system, we're not even in the game as such. And so that's looking at that, looking at Sanders, looking at the sort of wave of left-wing electoral victories, even Greece and Spain and stuff. It's given me pause for thought. It's given me serious pause for thought.
Well,
Anyway.
my final thoughts are that even if I agreed with you, which I don't really, as I'm sure you know, but even if I accepted that, you can work within the system and get this great left-wing guy that's going to change everything, I really don't think Bernie's that guy anyway. And I wanted to say before, when Johnny was talking about the Bernie Bros phenomenon, I think that's kind of it's a part of who Bernie is. Like that's a necessary sort of outcome of the person that Bernie's been the whole time. And his one thing that gets that really nobody talks about on the left or in the mainstream at all, really, is that Bernie's base was white racists for his entire career. And they're not as racist as white people in a place like Texas, but Vermont is almost an exclusively white state, which means that race was never really an issue there, and that people were able to be just sort of casually racist without ever having to face any pushback for it. And he has a very, very, very long history of relying on the anti-immigrant sentiment and ginning up the whole Mexicans are coming to take your jobs thing, because he had a white labor coalition and that played well with them. That there's all these people are going to come and fuck you, and he would use that to scare up votes. And I think that the Bernie bro phenomenon is kind of just an extension of that he has a big long history of just completely ignoring people that he doesn't agree with and steamrolling people of color. And that's
I would like to see some evidence for that. I would like to see what you mean by him doing that. I'm not arguing with you that white people in Vermont are racist. and that that he's taking their votes. But I would like to know what you mean by.
Well, I mean, I can't like post the link on the YouTube thing here, but if you Google like Bernie anti-immigrant, you get a ton of stuff, and he has a bunch of statements. I mean, he voted against immigration reform on the grounds of preserving American jobs. Was his code word for like white people, of course, as they all do.
Well,
American jobs.
The reason
You can't have foreigners need American jobs. And he told very early on in his presidential campaign, he told Ezra Klein that if too many Mexicans come, it won't be America anymore. We have to close the borders. We can't let too many people over here. If you're destroying the concept of a nation state if you open your borders, and if too many people come from outside, it won't be America anymore, was his exact phrase.
Bernie
Sanders?
Bernie
Bro thing doesn't come from nowhere. That's been his
I actually
kind
do
of.
remember that too. I do remember that though.
I have to admit you're educating me on that point.
But
Bernie-
I don't think that makes him racist. But I think like as a socialist, you have to be cognizant of like the open border. Like if you're a socialist, a true socialist believes that eventually a transition to a stateless society. You cannot necessarily be like we got to close our borders. Like what I'm saying, like especially refugees and for example in America we have borders where Mexicans, if they come over the border, it's a crime. But if Haitians, if Jamaicans, if Cubans come over here, it's wet foot, dry foot law. But if Haitians come over here in a boat, they get deported. But if a Cuban comes here, they're technically political refugees. How is Cuba different than Haiti? Like I'm just saying, like, and I'm not trying to. I think Bernie Sanders, I would support him over a lot of people, but as a socialist, I just view the whole borders thing as like a socialist would be favorable to refugees, whether no matter what nationality they're from. Florida is one of the states where people die coming here. They make rafts out of nothing to come here from Cuba, Haiti. Like it's sad. Like I grew up in South Florida where we would go out fishing and we would see. There was one time we saw dead bodies from Haiti.
Oh, wow.
Like that's the one thing I will say against Bernie, but I don't think that necessarily says he's a
I don't
racist.
get how Bernie Sanders is responsible for the dead bodies from Haiti, man. Like I feel like I lost the track of that argument somewhere. I'm very concerned.
It's a tangent, I'll agree, but I'm just saying like the border situation, like he supports the continuation of our border policy, which says that Cuban people can come here, and as long as they get on the land, they're technically, it's like a refugee situation. But if anybody else comes here, it's they have to be deported. They got to be detained and deported. Like I'm just saying, like I can see that argument that Andy's bringing forth. You know what I mean?
But I feel like you're kind of laying the entire Westphalian nation-state system at Bernie's feet here. That he's not saying open the borders and
I don't want to
give up national territorial control, that makes him racist. I don't know.
I don't want to, but I will say I'm a bit biased just because where I'm from, here that's a very touchy issue, man, because like Florida is a very multicultural state, especially in South Florida, and we know, like when Haiti, anytime something happens in Haiti, we know what's going on there. We feel it too. When national, when crisis, like whether it's a hurricane, or something, we feel it too here. And I know what it's like to see the news when you see Haitians running on our streets to evade our police because they got on our land.
Well, that's nothing. I mean, Australia has its own horror story with border protection and refugees and so forth. And that doesn't mean that I'm. Anyhow, we won't open up too much more debate. Alison's mess texting that she's got to head off. We should probably wrap it up now. We've been going a little bit over an hour. That's, as we're closing, looks like Bernie's won in Oklahoma and Vermont and lost everywhere else. Minnesota and Colorado yet to vote, yet to report anything. Best he can do
Colorado
is 4 out of 11, which is not great. Anyhow, that's the end of our Super Tuesday wrap up. Unless anyone's got something important they feel they really need to add.
It's the end of the burn, man. Burn is over.
That's your motto, Doe.
Hey, Jill Stein, man. Jill Stein.
All right.
Unless you're in a swing state.
Hey,
Unless you're in the swing state, exactly.
I won't be scared into voting for Hillary, bro.
Well, you're in Kentucky, though, right?
I don't matter who I vote for.
I'm just
Trump
messing with you, man.
No, Trump's gonna win no matter what.
Yeah, we're fucked. We're all going back to Ecuador. Or like, are we going to Canada?
Right.
I hide out somewhere. Anyhow, if Trump wins, Jesus.
I don't even want to think about it. Peace, y'all.
Anyhow, we might have to. Anyhow, peace out.
All right. Bye, everyone. Good night.
Peace.
Thanks for participating, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.